Welcome, everyone, to today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller, and you're looking at today's graph for Tuesday. And if you've ever heard of this definition called the ring of fire, you're looking at it basically. So you can see the thunderstorms are basically in this little ring right here. Now, they're not all the same intensity, but you can clearly see that right here, nothing is forecast. And that's because there's high pressure aloft that is causing sinking motion, and that is a real deterrent for basically organized severe weather or organized storms of any kind. Now, you might get a pop-up thunderstorm somewhere in the middle of that somewhere, but the jet stream defines where the organization is. So that is clearly up through here and then circling back down through New England. There is a lot of level 2s. Those are the slight risk areas in yellow: New England, upstate Michigan, UP, and also a good chunk of northern Wisconsin. And then we'll focus out in this area here in Kansas because there's an enhanced risk here. That's the level 3. It's basically about coverage. All three of the severe weather types are emphasized in this level 3 area. Out here, Garden City, Colby, and along I-70 between Colby and, let's say, Hayes, and a little north of that even. So let's break it down. The tornado risk does not really show up, at least from the SPC's perspective, in that enhanced area, but there's some evidence it might occur anyway. We'll look at their forecast for a 2% risk of a tornado. So northern Wisconsin, UP, and Michigan, and then a good chunk of northern New York State, and most of Vermont and New Hampshire, a little bit of Maine too. 2% chance of any strength tornado within 25 miles. No hatched areas, so they're not even bothering to rate that. Now, on NATOcast, not really emphasizing the New England threat much. UP, yes, and then they do have a couple of patches of tornado probabilities that reach the 2% mark out there in western Kansas. So the SPC is not highlighting that, but NATOcast is in that enhanced area. On the wind side of things, there are 3 patches that go along with the slight risk areas. There is a little bit of an enhanced wind risk up here in Michigan, and certainly one out here in Kansas and down into the panhandle of Texas. So this is wind. So again, the colors indicate the percent chance of a severe wind. So a severe wind just requires a 59 mile per hour gust or higher. And then the hatching is an attempt to say, well, what's the breakdown of that? So there's a 30% chance of getting the minimal amount of wind. And then here's the percentage breakdown in this hatched area. So you see there's a heavy weighing, of course. If you add 55 and 31 together, you get 86. So there's an 86% chance it's going to stay below hurricane force, below 74 miles per hour. But there is a measurable chance. So you got 10, 5, and 6. So you got 16% chance of it being 75 mile per hour or greater. So that's how they'll interpret that, by the way. And there's a little bit of risk up there in the UP of Michigan and maybe a small sliver of the lower peninsula as well for about that same intensity level. On the hail side, there's a enhanced area, a percentage up in the UP of Michigan. This is what's interesting about this. So even though the percentage chance of getting any severe hail is higher in Michigan and lower out here, they actually do think that even though there's a lower chance of severe hail, that it might be a little more intense if it does occur. That's how you interpret that. So anyway, on CSU's outlook, the tornado risk is actually put at 10% in the UP of Michigan, so pretty substantial there. A little bit of a finger of that in upstate New York. The wind risk is being emphasized certainly through Wisconsin and Michigan, and the hail risk is not real great, but it is in some of those areas that have already been highlighted by the SPC. Then we'll turn our attention to Wednesday. Again, the jet stream defines it, so it's kind of flowing through this area here. The high pressure ridge, as you know, is shifting eastward, causing the record heat here. And there's a little bit of a risk of severe weather out in New England, but the main risk area is out here through parts of southern Michigan, or make that Minnesota, northern Iowa, a good chunk of central Wisconsin. There's a tornado risk associated with that, minimal, but 2% in about that slight risk area. Minneapolis, Appleton, Green Bay, Wausau, no R, Rochester, those areas there north of Des Moines. Then there's a wind risk. They didn't really delineate a significance to that, but it's highlighted in about that same slight risk area. And the hail risk is a little higher. Again, the hatched area indicating they're trying to put some percentages down for what that looks like. So again, the fact that it's going to stay below 2-inch in hail size is about 83% probable, with only a small percentage chance of it being bigger than that. CSU is putting the tornado risk squarely in Wisconsin, a little chunk around Rochester there in Minnesota. That's coming in at a 5% risk for Wednesday. Hail, pretty minimal. Wind, again, central and southern Wisconsin, and maybe a little hatching there, saying it could be a significant wind in that area. So that's something they're going to be watching out for there, certainly on Wednesday. Thursday, the severe risk continues. This is interesting because it seems like the Storm Prediction Center is kind of splitting the difference between various AI models. So they're saying South Dakota, parts of Nebraska, good chunk of Iowa, southern Minnesota for that level 2 risk. Now, this is day 3 for them, so they don't really differentiate between severe weather type, but CSU's model does. So it's interesting. They mention a little bit of a tornado risk in North Dakota and nothing here. And even the hail risk is displaced from where the SPC put the risk. And then the wind risk for Thursday is centered around southern Wisconsin. And again, they put the severe risk there. So it looks like there's some uncertainty as to where that severe weather would exactly occur on Thursday. It's 3 days out, so that kind of uncertainty is not unusual at all. Friday, still looking at a 30% risk. So all the SPC would need is confidence of this yellow area to issue a forecast for Friday. I have not yet, nothing there. They might, but I show you this because that's where it's possible. And if it's probably going to happen at all, it looks like it would happen in this area here because they have outlined a 30% probability there in southern Minnesota on Friday, getting into the holiday weekend. That's becoming a little more important for those folks up there. Again, if it's yellow here, that kind of outlines roughly where it might show up on the official forecast. So right here through the Corn Belt into the Great Lakes and maybe again out in the eastern seaboard area. Sunday, Virginia and the Carolinas, settling down in the northern plains finally. And then we'll take a look at the supercell percentages. And so this is June 30th through July 6th period. It basically should be a summation of everything I just talked about. And it pretty much does that with the highest percentages possible there, 30% chance of a supercell accumulated again over that 7-day period. It's not a specific daily forecast. July 7th through the 13th, we're looking at that risk shifting up from basically Montana, southern Canada, down into Iowa. Still pretty active for the early and even middle part of July to have storms of that caliber down as far south as Nebraska and Iowa and even northern Missouri. Usually it would be hanging out up here or in Canada. And then we still see this kind of extending into the July 14th through the 20th period, almost the exact same profile, implying that more stable air will be hanging out here. An upper level ridge will stabilize things here with the sinking motion, and this boundary right here is at least at this distance where all the action is forecast to happen.